I'm Melvin Miller, and thank you for joining us for the In Touch webinar on farm record keeping. In Touch Community Services is a nonprofit organization dedicated to community and economic development in rural and urban America. Our mission is accomplished by engaging in community-based partnerships and with stakeholders on the local, state, and national levels. At this time, I'm delighted to present to you the Executive Director of In Touch, Dr. Samuel L. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. It is a privilege to come before you today and say thank you for coming to join us in this webinar. It is very important. I was raised on a farm in Florence, Mississippi. My father was a farmer, and record keeping was very important. My father didn't do a whole lot of record keeping, but my mother did. And it is so important to do that. And I was reading in the Bible one day, I realized that God even has a record of tears. Every teardrop that falls from your eyes, God keeps a record of that. So if he keeps a record of just water coming from your eyes, the business of your organization, it is very important that you keep good records. So we're just so delighted today to come before you and bring to you this webinar. May God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. And now for our main presentation, it's my pleasure to present to you Carolyn L. Banks, Agricultural Business Management Specialist with the Alcorn State University Extension Program.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. The record keeping is one of the most important topics, but it's probably one of the least talked about. And today I would like to share some tips on the importance of keeping record keeping. In this webinar, what we want to take away from the day, we want to be knowledge of what is record keeping, how to establish a system of records. Now, everyone records record differently, but the most important thing is to make sure that we are recording. And third, the basic understanding of how to use our Mississippi Small Farm Record Book. What are farm records? Farm records are basically just documents that's kept in details of all the events that go on at the farm operation. We'll make sure it gets a picture of the cost and the revenue and whatever sales that you have going on. So actually it captures all the records that are on the farm operation for the sake of helping us to make a productive decision. So record keeping, you'll hear this over and over from different agencies. They will tell you how important it is to make sure that you keep records. I cannot stress enough of the importance of keeping records. So we're going to try to talk and counter that as much as possible. So when you leave today, those of you all that are not taking records or keeping some form of records, that you will start today. Now, there are three types of farm records. We're going to talk about the inventory, production, and the financial records. All these are part of the farm operation, and all of them are very important. Of course, we have the inventory, which most time we don't get a note of how important the inventory is, but it's important for us to have inventory, because if we would do inventory, then we will save a lot of money. So inventory is just of all the records, that's all the assets that's owned by the farmers and the cash value of each item. So in that inventory, you're gonna have everything that's on the farm operation. The equipment, the land itself, everything needs to be included as part of the inventory, because that's how you're going to get a clear picture of what's going on at that farm operation. There you will have the production records. These are used to document everything that is going on that is formed at the farm. And these records, you can, most people, it's left up to you how you're going to prepare them, whether you prepare them every week, on a monthly basis or a yearly basis. But what's most important, at least if you make sure that you do your inventory, you're going to do that at least once a year. And then, of course, and third, we have our financial records. And our financial records is going to basically is relating to the money that's involved. the financial, the interaction of the farm. So these records are very important, and all three of them are very critical to the management of the farm business. And in using these records, all three of them, this is how a farmer or farm family makes a decision about what's going on at the farm operation. Farm records are like, it's just used as an example. It's like a report card. Most students have a report card. What it is, the farm, you want to know what's going on. The farm has a report as well. And on that report, it basically tells that farmer whether he's doing good, he or she is doing good, or there are weak points, or there are things that can be improved. So these are the strengths and the weakness of the operation. So you want to do a comparison, especially if there's a like operation. If you have someone that's basically have a produce is the same as yours, and they might be doing more production or better production than you, and you want to know why. So you need to make sure that you're recording everything, more so as doing a comparison. So it's very important to make sure that you keep your on records for as your operation is concerned. Why do we keep records? Where in order for a farm operation to have an effective farm, and especially to make good sound decisions, you must have a good set of records. Now, there is not guaranteed that having records will make your farm operation successful, but I guarantee you it's most unlikely that it will be successful if you have no records at all, because therefore you have no way of recording anything. So the importance of keeping some type of records is very important. Now, as far as the management of the operation, you have records when it comes. Why should you keep records? Well, there are three activities. You have to plan, you have to implement, and basically keep control of your operation. In the planning, you want to make sure that there's things that you're recording that's going on that's at your operation. If there are fertilizer, whatever you're using, whatever materials, if you have livestock, if you have crops, or whatever year, whatever is going on, or whatever's in that process or that planning process, you want to make sure that you record that, because there are some adjustments to be made. And if there is no recording, then you don't know what to adjust. So the planning stage is very important. Then you have the implementation, where actually you're going to carry out what you say you're going to do, because any operation should have some type of business plan. Something should be in place as far as what's going to take place. And once you carry it out and execute, you want to make sure that you're using the best method that you possibly can as far as for that operation. Now, every operation is different, so you have to plan and implement what's best for you and your operation. And of course, you want to make sure that you keep in control of your farm operation. You have the authority to make the adjustment, to manage your operation. And in managing your operation and keeping control, it allows you to know what's going in, and what's coming out of your business. It's actually letting you know what's being sold and what's being spent. And most time it gives you the opportunity, you can sit back and to see and determine if this is the right business that you're in. But sometimes we're in different businesses and it's not working out. We don't want to wait till the end of the quarter or the end of the year to realize, well, this is not working for me, because there's a lot of lost revenues there. So you want to make sure that you're determined if this is the right business, so you have the opportunity to either get out or to make some serious adjustments. So keeping those things in mind is very important. Now, there are different reasons for keeping good records. For credit purpose, of course, if you're applying for something, if you have a lender, the first thing they're going to ask you, especially if you're going for a loan or going with some of the agencies, they want to see what type of, are you credit worthy? So the first thing they're going to want to make sure if they see your records, because they know that if you're keeping good records, and they can just about justify and be able to see whether, you will be able, according to your records, they can look and see whether you would be somebody that they would want to loan money to. Anytime there are leasing and arrangements that's involved, you want to make sure that you're keeping all appropriate records. If you're participating in any type of government program, or even with taxes, when you determine whether you have federal or state taxes, you want to make sure that all these records are kept in place. Again, like I said, now everybody keeps records differently, but the important thing is to make sure that you're keeping accurate records, not just good, but accurate records, because you want to be able to produce, especially when it comes tax times, to be able to give that tax preparer the necessary information they need in order to complete your taxes. And speaking of records and taxes, when you're doing taxes, if you're a farmer, you make sure that you invest with someone that does, when it comes to farming, that someone that's knowledgeable of the farming versus just a general tax preparer, because they would know more about the deductions that you would be able to, that you're allowed to get. So keep that in mind as well. Now, farm records they're used to evaluate the performance of the farm in the enterprise within a given period. Like I said earlier, you don't want to get to a certain point and realize that you need to make some adjustment while you waste a lot of money. Farm records will enable the farmer to know which enterprise that contribute to the overall process of the farming, progress of the farming. Some things might be better than others, so that would they would determine whether which one is more profitable than the other one. The farmers can keep a close check on what's working and what's not working. If there are some adjustments or some plans that need to be made, they can make those adjustments. And also when it comes to planning for other things and making budget decisions, it's good to keep all these records. And without those records, there is no way that they can make good sound decisions. It tells a farmer how much that they've earned, how much they're losing. So if you don't keep records, there is no way. It's basically the old saying, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. So that's why it's so important to make sure everything is documented and to let you know if you're gaining or losing. And it enables you also to obtain loans at the bank or other financial institution, because that's the first thing. Basically, they're going to ask you where are your taxes or where are your farm records, because they want to review what's been going on at your operation. And the only way you can really justify that is some type of documentation should take place. Now, we want to keep it simple. When you're keeping records, there are some things that you want to just, the simpler it is, the less complicated you make it, everything goes smoothly. When you start making things complicated, then the more mistakes. So when you have any business, if you have a business, you want to make sure that you have some type of checking account for your business. Always keep that your farm operation account and your personal account that's kept separate. You want to make sure that you keep a ledger for the income and expense for the month. You want to make sure that you have an inventory. You want to make sure that there's a depreciation schedule. All these things that you want to keep up with. You want to have a balance sheet, income statement, and all these the cash flow statements, so you can actually measure what's coming in and what's going out, your losses and things. So when you're keeping record of this, and you can make the adjustments, so it makes everything run a whole lot smoother, and of course, less expensive. It'll be on you. Now, where do we start? There are key records keeping. And one of them is to commit to some type of record keeping system. You have way of, if you're starting off, if it's something simple, you have one only enterprise, you want to start off at something simple. And you start off simple and you just improve over time. So you choose a system that meets your need. You can't go according to someone else. It's based on your operation. And you want if it's something simple, you just have one enterprise. You just might want to show your income and your expenses, so you can basically understand that, especially if you're someone new and just starting out. And so if you have more than one business, you want to make sure that you keep them separate. I always keep that information separate so you can be able to know what did you spend, what are your expenses, and what came in for each one of those businesses. Okay, you have what we call a single entry record keeping and a record keeping system, which is double entry. Now, on the single entry, it's just the basic transaction, what you're going to record what's coming in and what's going out. Okay, you are going to have a column of receipts. You have a line that's going to basically include what was received, basically the date that it was received, who you received it from, and basically the total amount that was received. The money that you spend, you're going to actually have those categories let you know how much that you spend out as well, and it'll have the check date. So if you're writing checks, which is always good to use checks, because checks are used as a form of documentation. And on that check, most time what we don't do is that on that check, it has a memo section. Kind of notate on that memo section and write there actually what is that. If you made a check out to $200 to the co-op, where you may at that moment, you might remember what you wrote it out because it might have been for some fee, but then down the road, you're going to tend to forget, what did I write to 200? So it's always good to document what you're using and kind of keep that as a practice. Now, people, as time go on and your operation gets larger and you have what we call the double entry, which is record keeping. These are for the increasing of the farm operation. So basically what it is, it combines the single entry system with additional information. You're going to be picking up more information. So the double entry system, which is going to include the information that's on hand, equity in it, billing, equipment, account payable, all this information, you're going to be recording this. Now you'll have accounts receivable, accounts payable, and all this information. So that's when you get it into the larger operation. But if it's something basic, you just want to keep it with the single entry. So each transaction is going to be recorded twice, and that's what they call self-balancing. And I put an example down here because I just kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Just say if you wrote a check out to a supplier, and so in your journal, it should have a decrease where you wrote the check out because it's going to take away from that cash account, where also on the other hand, it's going to be an increase because you bought supplies. So it should be an increase in the expense. So that's what they call it should equal. So that's what they call the check and balance. So very important, always document whatever coming in and whatever is going out, because you'll see that it's supposed to, check and be supposed to balance itself out. Now, here are two methods of record keeping that you use. We have what we call the cash method and the accrued method. In the cash method, these are just all items that's received that's during that year. It's going to include the gross income. These are the expenses that are deducted during that tax year, which was paid. Now, the accrued method is the income that's reported in the year that it was actually produced and earned, and the expense was actually deducted in the year that it was cured. So it doesn't mean that it was necessarily received or paid in the same year. So that's why it's so important to make sure that you use these methods. And as far as when it's coming to making decision, it's good to use that accrued method as far as recommendation. And they'll tell you that is the best probably as far as making a decision on your farm operation. Now, in analyzing records, we got most farmers that want to make sure that they have a list of everything that they have in their production. And it's good to make sure that you document everything that you have. So as much as you can recall, that's what you want to document. But keep in mind, you want to make sure that everything is kept simple. The most simple things are less problem. So also when it comes to the decision making, you want to make sure that those records, those financial records, those production records, the income records, that they can be obtained. And you want to make sure that you're obtaining them on that, whether it's you keep it, whether that weekly, during the month, or however. It is your desire to make sure that you keep them whichever way you want to. But also, when you keep in good sound records, it helps you make better decisions. So keeping those records going to help you make a decision because you have everything that you need there. And if you document well, you should have no problem. And today I will share some things at the end of this presentation. I'm going to share some things with you all and hope and help that they will help you with your record keeping system. Now, there is a checklist for keeping good records, and these are just some of the things that I feel that will benefit you as far as keeping record and keeping everything in order. You want to make sure that if there's any deposit to be made, if you can make a deposit, especially if you have a large operation, make sure that those deposits are made daily. If not daily, weekly, but have some type of way that you can do. So if you go to the bank maybe once a week, some people go twice, but make sure that you make your deposit as regularly as possible. When you're labeling things, when you're writing out checks, again, make sure that you complete that deposit slip. Make sure everything is recorded, because what's recorded is very important. It will help you. And when it's time for tax time, it will help you. You want to make sure that you balance everything. Everything that you have, you should keep a balance. If you have someone that tends to the financial part, make sure that they're balancing out. If they balance on a monthly basis, I know things are different now because of technology, but it's still important to make sure that what the bank have and what you have, and you do that comparison, that they should be the same. If you are a farmer, that you use work orders. Make sure that you're recording all the information. The more information you record is the better understanding, there are better records being kept, because you want to make sure that you're including all the details of if you got a job, if you got some hired help somewhere, that you want to make sure that you putting all that information in, because when it's time to tax time and recording things, you'll know exactly what was done. And make sure when there's inventory, it all depends on the inventory, is how large your operation. If you have extremely large operation, where at least I would say inventory at least once a year. But if you have a large operation, you might want to consider doing your inventory more than once a year. It just all depends. So that would be something that would totally be determined by the farmer. Now, inventory, what is inventory? First thing you want to keep in mind for a thought or two, I would like to say, if something happened, I would like to ask you the question, what would you do if something happened to your farm operation? In the event that there might be a fire, a flood, or something that comes there and destroy your operation, what would you do? As far as, are your records all in one location? Are they all on the farm operation? If they are, there might be a possibility that you might consider putting your records more than one place, because if something happens, and I forbid anything that happens, if something happens and destroy everything, what would you do? So that's something to keep in mind. What would you do? A lot of times people have safety deposit boxes at the bank. Sometimes they keep a record. I suggest that you keep your records in more than one location. A lot of times, since we in the technology age, I would consider putting everything on the computer, and not only just computer, because what if the computer destroyed? Okay, well, you need your backup plan. You can use jump drive. There are different things, scan things. So there's different ways, but I just want to put it on your mind to keep in mind of having some other way to make sure that your records are protected, because these are the most important records. And if something happened, you don't have anything to argue against what actually happened to your farm operation. So just keep that in mind. Now, what is the farm inventory? The farm inventory is a list of all the assets that you have on your farm operation. And during your inventory, this is what you're going to do, is put the value of the things that you have. And when I say farm inventory, I just don't mean your equipment. That includes, you want to include the value of the land. You want to put everything that has anything to do with that farm operation. You want to make sure that it has some value attached to that. Now, you want to make sure that you include the price of them. What's the value of all of them? And what's the depreciation time and all this? All these things are very important, and it's important to make sure that you document it. When you buy things, make sure that you record all the information. When you get your paperwork, if you purchase something, make sure you record all that information because you're going to need that information. Now, the purpose of the inventory is actually to monitor what you have in your stock. You want to make sure that not only does it help you to monitor, but it also help you to make decisions. So you'll know what's going in and what's coming out, things that you need to eliminate, things that you need to keep, or it might be a situation where you need to buy more of. It just all depends on your enterprise. Now, reason why farmer records are so important, because it helps a farmer manage what they have. It helps them manage, it helps them to be able to budget what they have. And by them keeping enough information, they are able to do proper planning and proper budgeting every point in time. So they don't have to wait to a certain point. That if they monitor what's going on, that allow them and give them the opportunity to make adjustment for their farm operation. Now, when you create a farm inventory, like I said earlier, it's all left on the individual, how often you keep inventory, but everyone should the farmer should do inventory at least once a year. Up here, I have on the screen, you have different categories where you can make your own category, but this is just something, give you an idea. These are the things that you want to keep and make sure. If there are any land, animals, buildings, supplies, everything that you have that's on your farm, because you have to account for it. Everything plays a part. It's an asset. If you own it, of course, it's an asset. Even with the things that you own, you still should be keeping a record of that as well. So everything on that farm operation should be recorded. Now, these are just some of the examples of inventory and what things that you should keep. But like I said earlier, you should keep a list of everything. Everything that you have should have a value. Not only should it have a value, but even whatever, if there is something that you owe on it, you want to make sure that that's recorded as well. So this is just a list of tractors, the backhoes, everything, whatever you have in inventory, all this should be recorded. Even if you have hired help, that need to be recorded. Even with you going to the local co-op, you're using gas. You know, a lot of times people don't feel like that's important. That is, anything has to do with that operation, you need to be recorded. And it's important that you record it. And if you record everything, you'll be surprised of how much money, expenses that you have. With a lot of time, people don't record certain things, but you should. It's important to make sure that you record everything. Now, the advantage of having inventory is ensures the farm business don't overspend or they don't have unnecessary products that they need to order. It also tracks things that are selling that they are not selling. It helps them determine what needs to be repaired. And then that's another thing, equipment that we have that's working and not working. We need to make sure that if it's on the inventory, if it's no longer working, it needs to be removed from the inventory, because you don't want to be paying insurance on something that's no longer working. And sometimes, a lot of times, equipment is not working because it's a possibility that it might need a part, where that part make it a difference between cost and having a value to it versus not having a value. So if it's not working, cannot be repaired, it needs to be removed from your inventory. It's making sure that it, like I said, is covered by all insurance. Anytime that you should have insurance on your equipment. If there is no insurance, you should. If there are things that are not working, because you don't want to be paying insurance for things that you don't no longer using. So anytime there is new equipment, you need to make sure that you're reviewing that your policy and making sure that everything is included on there and delete the things that are no longer on there. Now, when you file a claim, you want to make sure that you're keeping all the information, which is the receipt. And this is another thing, sometimes when it comes to our equipment, we need to be recording. I said earlier about when you buy equipment in the paperwork, where on that paperwork, you can pull a lot of information, and some of the things you want to make sure that you pull that serial number, the model number, make sure you record that, you know, the day that you bought it, who you bought it from, and make sure you keep the receipt and keep the value of it. All that information is important. So when you file a claim, because that is one thing that they're probably going to ask you when it's come to filing a claim. Now, some of the couple things that are disadvantage of a farm inventory is time consuming. It's time consuming, but it's worth it. It's worth it in the long run. And the other thing, you know, small business, if you have a farm operation, it's not necessary. It may not be necessary for you to have an inventory system, but you need to be recording whatever you have, regardless how small or how large it is. Some type of recording should be, so the inventory, you should know what's taking place on your operation, and you should know that everything that's going on. So it's important for you to record everything. Now, within here, this I had mentioned it earlier, we do have what we call a Mississippi Small Farm Record Book. Most of you all have seen it. It's a book that has been around for a while. We have revised it several times. But what I want to make available for everyone on the call is what we call the Farm Record Book Kit. And in this kit, you receive a copy of the large farm record book. Also, you receive a pocket size. Of course, you wouldn't use the large book to go out there in the field. So you want to take something small that basically you can just put in your pocket. And that's why we come up with the pocket size. Also, you will have a file folder, so you can eliminate putting all those receipts on the truck, in the truck and other places, in the shoe boxes. So when you take it to your tax preparer, you'll have something that's organized. Because trust me, they like when they see you coming with you having organized receipts. The file folder, the calculator. I know everybody has, most time has a phone can use a calculator, but there are some, so we produce the calculator, and of course a pen and a pencil. So this is something that will be mailed to you, and I would be more than glad to share that with you. And this is my contact information. And anytime you feel free, or even if you think of something later on, if there's a question that you want answered, I'd be more than glad to try and answer. If it's something I can answer, I'd be more than glad to seek whatever I can to make sure that those questions are answered. That ends my presentation.